Good evening. This is John Warren, publisher of the San Diego Voice and Viewpoint newspaper, coming to you with our program from the desk of the editor. Thank you so much for joining us. As you see, we're doing this remote. I'm with Dr. Leonard Thompson III, and we are here with our open mic program to talk this evening about the California elections and what's happening with the elections around the country, to take questions if you have them, if we can possibly answer them. California is the biggest issue on the menu. 1 in 8 Americans, as they say, live in California, and we would be, if we were an independent country, based on our income and size, I think we would be number 4 on a global scale. So it's a pretty important place with 52 congressional seats, and all of them were up yesterday in the election for grab. We made a Proposition 50 adjustment so that we could try to pick up 5 additional seats to help regain the House. So, Dr. Thompson, here we are. You might tell folks how to join us.
Yes, Dr. Warren, thank you so much. As you know, since we're doing this new format, setting up a lot of things, but you can join us. We're on all the streaming platforms. We're on YouTube, Facebook, GOD Radio, Instagram, and we're also on LinkedIn this evening also, Dr. Warren. So we have a lot of places, and if you put your questions in the chat, we'll be able to answer them, share with you, and literally just make sure that you have everything that you need to know. And Dr. Warren, I'm gonna pitch it back to you while I get everything set and ready to go for all the questions. All righty?
Okay, I thank you so much. We are excited here because, in addition to the big race in terms of the candidates for governor, let me just say in California, we have an arrangement where the top 2 vote getters, even if they're the same party, they face off in the general election. And so that means that across the board, we have an elimination process. We had over 60 candidates running for governor. The top vote getter so far has been Steve Hilton, who is a Republican, British, by the way, background. And then we have Xavier Becerra, who is running for governor, with the number 3 person in the 60 being billionaire Tom Steyer, who has spent over $200 million in this campaign in terms of trying to get into this primary, if you will. And of that $200 million, he's come in number 3. At this point, he has like about 20%. Xavier Becerra has like a 25. And interestingly enough, the Republican former talk show host Steve Hilton, with Donald Trump's endorsement, has approximately 28%. So it looks like the face-off is going to be between Becerra and Hilton on the ballot, with Hilton being a Republican. We were trying very much to get 2 Democrats, which would have been Becerra and Steyer, in terms of running. We had other well-known Democrats in the race, such as Katie Porter, a former member of Congress, was in the race. And I think the African-American running was the superintendent of state superintendent of public instruction, Tony Thurmond. And he came in way down the list in terms of numbers, because the California race seemed to have been won about dollars in popularity. In the case of Xavier Becerra, Becerra had been a former member of Congress, a former district attorney in the state, if you will, and then he was a former head, Secretary of Health and Human Services. And so he came with a lot of name recognition, and his name recognition seems to be outweighing the money issue in terms of the dollars being spent by Steyer trying so hard to get this nomination. And so this is where we are. One of the most important races, I'm going to come back to the 5 constitutional officers in a moment. One of the most important races in this scenario was for the primary involving the position of mayor of Los Angeles, where former Congresswoman and state representative, State Senator Karen Bass, who currently holds the position, faced two-way challenges. And one of the people involved there was a former personality, media personality, who came in number two, beating out a woman who had separate party recognition. Let me say in California, we have a situation where independents outnumber Democrats. And then there are more independents than Republicans in California. And this comes at a time that a lot of people are really questioning their party ID. Many of the Democrats are getting votes as a protest vote against Trump, and not because the people are pro-Democratic Party. It looks like the Democratic Party has done very little, almost as nothing, to try and galvanize the vote in the midst of going on. And it looks like the most active thing that's happened in voting in California goes back to last November, when Proposition 50 was endorsed, realigning 5 congressional districts with the hope of trying to give the country 5 additional votes to offset the Republican votes that Donald Trump seemed to motivate by having Texas redistrict their scenario. We know we had a very interesting situation in Texas where in that case, the courts upheld their changes, but in the race for the Senate, Donald Trump's candidate, he dumped the Republican who had been in there for almost 40 years and endorsed the former, the Attorney General who was running. His name was Paxton, and he had survived impeachment by the Texas legislature, all kinds of corruption allegations, including adultery charges from his wife, who is divorcing him, and she's a member of the Texas State Senate. So we had lots going on. Texas, for the first time, is open to the possibility of a Democrat regaining control of the state there in terms of the Senate. And we are fighting very hard. It looks like we have a chance to get a Democrat in Utah in terms of the gentleman there running for the Senate against a seat where the Republican decided not to run at the last minute. And so that's a whole bunch of activity going on in terms of that scenario. It's a busy time. Dr. Thompson, how are you? You set up yet?
We are definitely set up, Dr. Warren. Let's go into the statewide governor's race
Okay.
in California. As of 5:48 p.m., we still see Becerra at 25.5%, Steyer at 19.7%, and the front runner still is Stephen Hilton at 27.6%. That this came out at 5:48 this evening. In the lieutenant governor's race, it looks like it's getting very, very close between Fiona Ma at 19.1 and Gloria Romero at 19.8. And so that is happening there in the state. Secretary of State, Dr. Shirley Weber, is decisively going forth with 54.4%. Followed by 41.2 with Donald Wagner. And then if we go down to the controller, it looks like Melina Cohen is at 53.3% as of 5:48, followed by Herb Morgan at 42. And if we were going down to the treasurer, right now we see that Iloni, I'm gonna mess up on her name, but it is or the name. It is
He's Greek. Last name is Greek.
yes.
Yeah.
34.4%, followed by Jennifer Hawk at 26.9. So, Dr. Warren, I have these election results up. They're coming from the California primary. You know, Rob Bonta is now at 52.7%, followed by Michael Gates at 42 for Attorney General. And then another race that I think that people will be very interested in, especially in San Diego, is the Superintendent of Public Instruction. It appears that Sonia Shaw is at 24.8%, followed by Richard Barrera at 18.9%.
Whoa. And so Richard Barrera is the former president of the San Diego Unified Board of Education.
Yes.
And so if he were to win, it would be the first time that that position would reverberate back here to San Diego, giving us more input. That's the position that's currently being held by Tony Thurmond, who is one of those people running for governor in terms of having termed out.
Yes.
Mm.
Yes. And if we were to go just to the state Senate and began to break it down, and I'm looking for San Diego right now, and let's see, District 18, Steve Padilla is decisively going forth with 60.3%. That is Steve Padilla. And I'm just going slowly but surely to get down to all of the races.
Yeah, Akila Weber is the one that is representing us, and I'm sure that her numbers are up there in terms of her winning. And then as we move over into the state assembly, because those are the positions we are most concerned about, we have Lachey Sharp Collins, who I believe she was at 52 or 53%.
Well, she stretched it out. She's now at 59.2.
Okay, and so she is representing the 79th Assembly District, which is our area here. And
Yes.
so we are pleased that it looks like she's going to be okay moving forward. She's been a very effective first-term assembly member and
Yes.
has done a great deal for us so far.
Now, help me with this. Is Dr. Weber, Akila Weber, what is her district?
Oh God, I don't have a number at the top of my
I want to
head.
say it's 39, but I could be wrong.
Yeah, it should be, because I think there are only 40 state Senate districts, and we're next to the last one.
Yeah.
If not the last one.
And it's funny that the 40 district 39 is not able to be reported at this point.
Okay.
So they haven't updated that information as of yet.
Does it show what percentage of the vote is in at this point so far?
Let me see. Statewide contest. What I had heard was only 40-something% had been counted, but I will check on that, Dr. Warren, and get right back to you.
Okay. Well, while we're looking at that, let us go forward to the congressional seats that concern San Diego. The 48th congressional seat is the one formerly held by Darrell Issa that was restructured in this Proposition 50 redistricting that took place. And the 48th congressional district, in addition to Darrell Issa as a Republican, he's the owner of the Viper car alarm system that's been in Congress. He's representing East County. The restructured district is very strangely drawn. 77% of the district is Palm Springs. 47% of the district is North County, San Diego, and 44% of the district involves Riverside. So it's kind of a weird map. And the people running in that district with the most notoriety and clout, we have Jim Desmond, who is the supervisor for the Surf District right now. And he is a former veteran, and not only a former veteran, I think he was a commercial pilot for about 35 years. And he is the lead runner on the Republican side, running against a San Diego City Council member who happens to be an attorney and former prosecutor, by the name of Marnie von Wilpert. And as far as I know, Marty is leading on the Democratic side, with the most well-known person running against her being Amir Campbell Najjar, who has been running, I guess, for the past 4 or 5 years. He's run for Congress before in the district. He ran in Chula Vista, the South Bay, and now he's back for Congress, and he's very closely aligned with Sarah Jacobs, who is the a member of Congress from San Diego, who took the position that was formerly held by Susan Davis. And Davis retired, which opened the race up and gave Sarah a chance to run. Sarah is the granddaughter of the Qualcomm empire, and she was formerly held a position in the Obama administration. So she had run for Congress once before in the North County, and she lost in a race there. And so here she had a clear field, and many people feel that her grandfather, who is Irvin Jacobs, that owns Qualcomm, which is the phone company, the phone mechanism folks, if you will, that made a mint of money in terms of that phone technology. He is now supposedly funding the granddaughter, and she is a member of Congress. She came out 50-some% in the primary, so she's safe. And it looks like in the 48th district, the race will be between Jim Desmond and Marnie von Wilpert. So those two are facing off, Desmond being the Republican choice and Marty being the top vote getter on the Democratic side. We also have Scott Peters running, I think, in the 50th Congressional District. And Peters is a former commissioner of the port. He is a lawyer, environmentalist-oriented person, has a track record of doing very well, though his numbers have dropped in this race. Last I checked, his numbers were 46% against a former KUSI media guy who had 44%. And so it looks like the two of them are going to face off for the race. Next, we have Juan Vargas. And of course, Vargas has like 53% of the vote, I believe. He's been a congressman who came from San Diego, from the city council to the state assembly, to the state senate, to Congress, and has gotten very comfortable there, if you will. I think too comfortable, because he's he's got part of El Centro. He's got quite a district, but I think in my personal observation, he's gotten fat and lazy. And I'm very disappointed with the extent to which he makes himself available to us. Part of his fame came from the fact that he was at Harvard with President Obama, so that stood him in good stead in terms of being close and having that relationship. You got anything else? Yeah, Dr. Thompson.
This is what I want to ask you, so that people understand what offices, if you get 51% or more, that you don't have to run in the November election, and which ones, no matter what, there's still going to be a runoff.
Well, I'm a little confused on that, believe it or not. I think that it's more than 51%, because these people have 54, but they still got to face the party from the other side, because of that rule about the two highest vote getters having to face off for November. So a lot of people have been eliminated who just put their names out there to run, and that was one thing. But now it comes down to each party person, because anyone can vote for anyone in terms of the primary. It doesn't matter if you're independent, Republican, or Democrat. And so now we're going to go into the general with a whole different ball game, if you will. I know I didn't quite answer your question. I'm really not quite sure. I don't remember. I was looking for that number, but I don't think anyone that we saw on the ballot yesterday reached that number. And that's kind of significant because people were looking at the races for the primary from the standpoint of who were the top vote getters in within each party. That's why we were concerned at one point that Republicans were going to occupy both seats in the runoff. So far, we still have a Democrat in there in terms of Xavier Becerra running against Steve Hilton, who is the top Republican. I think people should pay very close attention to what Hilton has done. With Trump's endorsement, Hilton has come in as the top vote getter in the state. And California is a blue state, so it's interesting that a blue state has a Republican as a top vote getter. And that's very significant. I think part of it is with the Trump endorsement is that we are a border state. And being a border state, people are very concerned about immigration and what's happening there. And so we're not as liberal as we think, even though Trump has tried to label us a sanctuary city. A sanctuary state. It doesn't look like we're a sanctuary state when a Republican, almost unknown, can come out of nowhere and be the top vote getter in a state that has 52 congressional seats and has a chance to put a Republican up there with those kind of numbers.
Well, I think the thing is that we will see it all level out because there were so many Democrats or so many people going for the Democratic nomination that it literally saturated the field. But I believe that all the Republicans that are registered in California compared to all the Democrats, it appears that we should be very successful if the person that is running runs a good campaign.
Well, that's true, Dr. Thomas, but you know what? Again, and I'm glad you raised this point because in this post-election period, I'm hearing from a lot of people who are Democrats who are telling me that they're ready to change their party preference to independent. The Democrats have shown no respect for their voter base. They haven't made any ground game in this whole thing in terms of helping people get elected. And I think what we see with Hilton is an indication that while they might be quiet and they might be a minority, like the rest of the conservative white folks in the country, they are quietly voting for the Trump mentality in terms of local politics. And I think we ought to pay very close attention because we're the ones who don't come out, and we're the ones that allow the Republicans to have the higher voter turnout because we don't consistently have a long-term plan that involves us coming to the polls. Okay.
Well, I definitely think that we have been taken for granted, but we look at the current state of the election. Basically, some of the statistical results say that out of the 23 million voters, 23 plus million voters that were registered to vote, only 338,094 actually voted. And that's statewide, and that was only 23.1% of all the registered voters actually voted. In the state and in the county, we have over 2 million in the county registered, and only 500,000 plus voted. And so that was only a 24.9% activation rate. And so that's very concerning because with all that's going on, you would think that more and more people would be more engaged, but they were not.
They're not voting, Dr. Thompson, and that's very significant because you know that we made a major push to get people to the polls. Dr. Shirley Weber, when she was in the assembly, made a major effort to ensure the right to vote in terms of state legislation. If you are a convicted felon who served your time, you can still vote. If you're in a state prison you can vote. The only time you're in prison and can't vote is if you're in a federal penal institution. If you are a homeless person in this state, you can vote. And so that's very significant when you look at places like Florida, where I pointed out before, there was a black woman there who had served her time for whatever the crime, and she decided to vote, and she was arrested and convicted for voting as a convicted felon when they didn't have the same privilege and freedom that we have here in California.
Mm.
And so we need to pay attention to what's going on, folks, because it's a very serious effort. You know, we get the right to vote under the 13th, 14th, and 15th Amendment. But if you look at closely at those amendments to the U.S. Constitution, you will find that once you are convicted of a crime, you lose citizenship privileges like your right to vote. And that gets to be very, very significant in terms of it. 14th Amendment is so critical to us because it's under the 14th Amendment that that the citizenship is granted both naturalized and people born in this country as citizens. And it is also under the 14th Amendment that corporations become individuals. And so based on that, we have a situation where we can have all kinds of dollars put into campaigns that normally would not be because of this what we call clandestine approach that allows the voting by entities that otherwise shouldn't be able to vote. So this is important, very important stuff. And we look at what the Supreme Court is doing, having gutted the Voting Rights Act in terms of Section 2, and then more recently having gutted Section 5, which is the one that has a lot to do with the oversight, and it triggered a rash of last-minute efforts by red states, states with red governors, to get people to get districts redrawn, and the gerrymandering of the districts. I like to explain it, gerrymandering, using San Diego County as an example. In San Diego County, this would be an example of how gerrymandering could work to ensure that the minority vote, which happens to be Black, Asian, and Latino, that vote get minimized. And here's what happens. You take a district that has, well, let's look at how a district can be drawn. You take a district, let's look at the Board of Supervisors that includes in the district Spring Valley and Lemon Grove, okay, which is the tail end of a community. It also would include El Cajon, Del Cerro, and all of these outlying rural areas of what is one of the largest counties in the state. And once you get all of those pieces together there, it wouldn't matter if 100% of the people of color in Spring Valley and Lemon Grove voted for a person. The rest of that district, which would be East County, which would be rural, Del Cerro, Campo, Jamul, all of those other areas out there, when those people vote, there are enough good old white folks in those areas to override that concentration of ethnic votes in a Spring Valley and a Lemon Grove. And a Spring Valley is made large by the fact that gentrification, as more cheaper housing in terms of apartment rentals and stuff were found in places like Spring Valley and Lemon Grove, then the poor people moved to those areas as other areas became more expensive to live in. And there we had the gentrification factor at work. So that's
Well,
an example of how things are being withdrawn. If you look at the 48th district, it's very significant that you've got northern part of San Diego County, you've got Riverside,
yeah,
which definitely outside of where we are, and then you've got 7% in Palm Springs, which is
yeah.
a big reach from where we are. Okay, so
Well, what I wanted to do
yeah,
was, I
right.
finally got on the right page to get everything in, and so for the 48th district, Jim Desmond, the Republican, is leading 41%, and Monty von Wolfert is at 19.5.
There
For
you
the
go.
board, yeah, for the board of supervisors, Rebecca Jones is at 40%, 40.8, and Kyle Carhella is at 19.9%. And so those are two front runners. They're calling the election for Chula Vista for John McCain at 60.3%. And in San Diego City Council District 2, Richard Bailey is got 38.8%, and Nicole Crosby is following at 31.3%. And um, let me go ahead and get down to this because I want to make sure that we have everything. And
Well, while you're in the city council, because this year's city council races are the even numbers 2, 4, 6, and 8.
yeah,
And so in the fourth district, we have Henry Foster, who has been chief of staff to Monica Montgomery, and Monica Montgomery stepped up to the board of supervisors when Elena Gonzalez's husband had to step down because of a scandal surrounding him. His name will come to me in a minute. My mind is slow opening the file cabinet.
yeah.
So she moved over to the board. Henry stepped up to her position. Then they had a special election in which Henry became the city council member for District 4. And it's kind of been a handoff with people who have worked for folks in the city council taking the position. But
Mhm.
now we have a new entity in the person of Martha Abraham, who is an Encanto resident, immigrant Eritrean who rose to recognition in the fight against Footnote 7, which was one of those things that Montgomery and Foster helped get passed to increase the housing density in Encanto, which is kind of a rural community within San Diego. And it's rural because that's the way the people wanted it. And so they have been fighting this thing because under footnote 7, it was possible the city council allowed greater density in Encanto in terms of more housing development, which they put it like 7% or something, as opposed to the rest of the city where the density numbers were restricted on a broader scale, and so that got to be a pretty important scenario. Martha then has risen to recognition as a person who is a healthcare worker who has been very articulate and outspoken in terms of speaking up for the community. Made a decision to run against Henry Foster, Voice and Viewpoint, endorsed and supported her in every way possible in terms of changes. As you know, Foster got real cocky in his position, often arguing with people. And tragically, he chairs the budget committee, but is not turning into a great deal of benefit and support for the community. So
Well,
that's some of the politics. Go ahead, Dr. Thompson.
yeah, and in District 4, Martha Abraham is leading by 40.4% over incumbent Mr. Henry L. Foster III at 38.4. But significantly, I think people need to know the importance of your vote. It's less than 200 votes that are separating them at this point. And so, again, when we look at these elections going over to District 6 with Kent Lee, his is much bigger, whether he's at a 55%, 55% to Mark Powell's 44, but the The difference between them is over 2,000. And so one of the things that I think is very significant between District 4 and District 6 is the number of voters that have voted versus the number of voters that have voted in District 4. And then if we go over to District 8, again, watch this. It is Antonio Martinez at 28%, Geraldo Ramirez at 23%, and Venus Molina at 21%. But watch the numbers. Of that, we're looking at 3,000, 2,000 type votes. So there's even less people voting in District 8 at this point. And so it's important that we need to know that your vote matters.
Very much so. And it's so important, as you're pointing out, Dr. Thompson. That's why right now, as we're going through the budget process and cuts are being made and people complaining about library services being cut, this is why they can get away with the cuts, because the people most affected are the least voting folks in the district. And if you don't vote, then why should the people down at the city council or the board of supervisors worry about your position? Because you're not a threat to anyone, because you really don't exist unless you exercise that right to vote. And that's very important. Okay.
Well, Dr. Warren, let me ask you this question. Measure A, right now the no's are 57.7 and the yes are 52.3. What's your thoughts on Measure A?
Well, I think the people of San Diego have spoken out about Measure A. Measure A would have provided a tax on unoccupied residences that is set vacant for, I believe, at least 12 months or more. And that hits a lot of people who have second homes. And with the second homes, it's a question of we're seeing more Airbnb activity. And we know that places like Ocean Beach, Pacific Beach, they've been very concerned that people who have second residences are making them available as rental properties, which is, of course, cutting into the revenue of the hotel industry. And the hotel industry in San Diego is highly fed by the tourism tax. And so that means that when you rent a hotel, there's a hefty tax attached to your rental fee, and that money goes into the tourism fund, which then feeds and funds a lot of activities, including expansion and improvement on the convention center and other issues. So this is a very serious issue, and people are voting no against it. I've seen it, as I mentioned last week, I've seen the impact of this issue in terms of how it can become racial. We had a situation where Detroit comes to my mind, and I shared that before. There was the mayor of Detroit by the name of Coleman Young, and Coleman was a very popular, very strong person in the city. And he was mayor at a time that there was a lot of violence and disruption in the city of Detroit, and he began to clean the city up. Well, during that time, there was a trial. Charges were brought against a member. I think she was the board of supervisors. It was a Black woman who had 2 residences. And of course, people try to use that issue against you if you're an elected person and you have a residence outside of the district in which you are running. It comes to be a question of what's your domicile. And so we have people who hold positions. Matter of fact, we just went through, we just had a provision passed in the county board of supervisors that would allow people on the board to live outside of the district that they represent. And so that gets to be a very important issue in terms of what we're looking at taking place. And so the Measure A, Sean E. Lovera and another member of the city council, they were the ones supporting this, and the people have risen up in great numbers against the whole idea. Does that help, Dr. Thompson?
Yes, it does. You know, people are basically saying that you are taxing us out of San Diego and taxing us out of California. And they finally have said no to something because, again, we cannot continue to live in this great state, in this great city, with all the multiple fees and things that are being levied against us at this point. Well, Dr. Warren, I believe, I think that now's the time for the push. You know, some people don't have to, their campaigns are over, they're in office, but other people, they now we got to go all the way to November. What's the game plan? What should people be doing? And how do we get more people out to vote? Shout out to all the young students that just turned 18 years old and they voted for the first time. So proud of you operating in your civic duty. Dr. Warren.
Well, I think this should be a very busy time right now because what happens historically, we have our primary in June, July, August, and then following Labor Day, people kick off their campaigns in earnest. I think the campaigns have to be kicked off even sooner in terms of efforts to get people registered, to get people galvanized to vote, to get those people who ran and lost involved in making endorsements so that their votes can be transferred over to the person of their choice that they would want to see run. Normally, they're trying to get people elected against the incumbent that they ran against. And so that gets to be very important. From our standpoint, I want people to understand that what you've just done is you sent a message to those who have money, those who are making decisions on how their votes are going to go. You have told them who will vote, who won't vote, and you have telegraphed to them where they're going to put their money and their efforts, okay? One of the problems that people identified with Xavier Becerra running for governor was they said he was supported by big money interests. And so that was a very significant thing. The great appeal for Tom Steyer was that as a billionaire, he wasn't subjected to money influence from folks. And so it looks like this battle is just kind of heating up. I'm especially concerned in terms of the 4th district and then the city council races here that people get involved now. Historically, our community does not receive support and efforts from the Democratic Party. Whatever people have money in terms of campaigns, that money does not fall on us in terms of helping us get involved. So this is when we make a statement going forward, because what happens between now and November is going to determine housing, is going to determine jobs, is going to determine services. All of these things that are important are going to be influenced by whether or not we vote, and people look at how we didn't vote. And that's going to help them determine where they're going to put their money and their emphasis. And it will be too late to just be a reactionary to the fact that that somebody lost when we had a chance to vote and we didn't. And this is probably why the Supreme Court was so comfortable in the actions that they took against the Voting Rights Act, and how they are able to galvanize and come in, 6-3, really against the people, because they are going to be comfortable that folks who have a vote aren't going to say anything or use their votes. Dr. Thompson.
Well, Dr. Warren, that's saying a lot, is that people can be comfortable with knowing that we're not going to use the power of our vote. And so basically what I hear you saying is that we need to start making people uncomfortable by being engaged and by voting.
Yes, we do need to do that. And historically, we don't. Historically, the masses who need the most support don't. Now, let me be very clear that that's not all over the country. In Georgia, in Texas, in South Carolina, we are seeing people waiting in line. Even here in California, although the polls close at 8 o'clock, the rule is that if you're in line, you still get the vote. And so people were out there voting. I had phone calls to the Voice and Viewpoint of people asking should they vote because they found the ballot complicated. And I don't think Dr. Weber could have done anything to make it less complicated as the Secretary of State, who's responsible for voting in all 53 counties I think it's 53 counties in the state of California. So this is where we are. This is a time to galvanize folks, because even as we're doing this vote issue, there's a group of people at work with a legislative effort, and I think they're gathering signatures right now to divide California into two halves. And so just like we have North Carolina, South Carolina, North Dakota, South Dakota, they want Northern California and Southern California. And if that is successful, we lose down here in the South because the money and the influence is up north. And it's a weird scenario. Again, it's almost like Florida, where in the state of Florida, we think of Miami being so key because of population, but the capital of Florida is in Tallahassee, which is in the northern corner close to Georgia. And so the capital here is not in LA down south. There it is up in Sacramento. Okay. And so for some reason, the capital of these states is not right close where they should be. And the changes could bring a lot of issues to us. So we need to pay attention. This is a chance to break the Trump stronghold, but not just Trump. Trump is only a symptom of a greater problem. And we know that I keep telling people there's racism involved right here. White America, even the 30% supporting Trump, have decided that the threat to having Black, Latino, Asian people outnumber whites in this state is a greater concern to them than democracy. So racism over democracy is at work. And that's why I made the point last week about Churchill making the observation that a democracy was a poor form of government, but all the others are so much worse. Between this Supreme Court that we have, the way they are operating, okay, and the efforts that are underway to have the court do things like they're challenging the birthing, they're challenging the constitutionality of being born. If you were born in America, you are an American citizen. They want to be able to mess with that and change that. And so we've got to wake up, because the country that we're leaving to our children going forward is a country that is going to be at great risk in terms of this whole concept of democracy. And we need to get involved in it. I'm going to be saying more about all these issues as we go forward. I can't do them all tonight. I am available if you have discussion groups, if you want to talk. We're going to have more town hall meetings. We're going to get involved here, because California, unlike the states on the East Coast, unlike the cities on the East Coast, you know, when you take places like Chicago, DC, Atlanta, Philadelphia, Barrows in New York, even in Florida, down in Miami, you got places there where people are actively involved after sundown in terms of government and making decisions about how government functions. And here, California mentality is go to the beach when we get past 5 o'clock, and people only want to get involved if something is a threat, NIMBY, when they want to say not in my backyard. But we have to get involved. Here we live in one of the most beautiful states in the country, a place that is got more domestic GDP in every place than most countries in the world. And here we are here. We only get to enjoy the beach or see the beauty of it when somebody comes from out of town to visit us. And then we don't take time. So if we're going to protect what we have and what everybody else wants, then we need to get involved, be voters, and pay attention to government and pay attention to the challenges that are coming. Dr. Thomas, we didn't get too many questions. Okay, I'm sorry.
That's okay. We have reached the end of our time, and thank you so much for joining us from the Desk of the Editor. Y'all stay tuned. We'll be back here next week, the same time, 6 p.m. on your Pacific time zone. Please share, press the word, and we will have more information coming out. And you also can look at this as a rerun on YouTube and other platforms. This is from the Desk of the Editor with Dr. John Warren. Y'all be blessed and have a great evening.
Good night.